Welcome to the third of 3 forums of the day. My name is Paul Diego Holzer, and I'm the Executive Director of Achieve Hartford. We are so happy to have so many people in the room, taking time out of your incredibly busy day to meet the 2 finalists for Hartford Superintendent, and a special thank you to both candidates, Dr. Taylor and Dr. Schiavino-Narvaez, for committing to what is soon almost a 14-hour day of meetings back to back to back. Achieve Hartford is honored to organize these forums on behalf of the Board of Education Superintendent Search Committee. Our mission is to create urgency and shared responsibility for closing the achievement gap in Hartford. And while some folks in the city refer to Achieve Hartford as the independent watchdog or critical friend of the school district, we like to tell people that we are the yin to the district's yang. By that I mean, while so much of reform is focused on what happens inside school walls, we're focused on what's happening outside school walls to ensure that the village, because it takes a village, as you know, is well informed and engaged. We're particularly happy that the search committee decided to have a forum targeting different stakeholder groups so that burning questions among Hartford's diverse residential communities could be voiced and hopefully addressed by tonight's candidates. A note on process. It was important to the search committee to give stakeholders who are not necessarily comfortable asking a question in front of 150 or what might end up being 200 people an opportunity to submit a question, so we made every effort through community partners to solicit questions via phone and via email that were pre-vetted by the search committee in order to ensure maximum amount of community participation. How will time be used in the next hour and a half? The process for tonight's event will look like this. The first candidate, Dr. Schiavino-Narvaez, will take center stage momentarily and have 45 minutes to address 8 questions posed by the moderator and myself. The candidate will have to budget time in that 45 minutes to answer questions that I pose, but also potentially budgeting questions for, if time permits, from you all in the audience. There is a microphone to my right. After the 8th question, time permitting, we'll ask anyone who's interested in asking a question to just line up next to that microphone, and we'll organize some Q&A. Each candidate must also manage his or her time to account for an optional opening and closing statement. So this is a lot in 45 minutes, but each candidate is obviously up for the challenge. Lastly, for those who want a copy of questions being posed not only at this forum, but at the early morning forum and afternoon forum, those sheets are available right outside the door if you didn't get on your way in. And now I'd like to just ask Beth to come on up and grab that microphone, make sure it works, and I'll get to the other mic to start moderating questions.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. What an incredible day. I am truly grateful to Achieve Hartford and the search committee for arranging these forums. I have been learning so much about Hartford through these forums and through the search process, and your presence here tonight confirms one of the things that I've been learning and one of the strengths of Hartford and one of the reasons I want to come here. This is a highly engaged community that cares deeply about your schools, and you believe, as I do, in the power of education to transform the lives of children. It's really why I do this work, and so I'm so thrilled to be with you tonight, and I'm eager to hear your questions because it tells me more about what's important to you. Before we start that, I'll tell you, I think you have my bio, but I'll tell you a little bit about my journey and what brings me here to your door today. First and foremost, I stand before you tonight as a parent of a public school child with disabilities. I share that with you because this has deepened the perspective that I bring to my work as an educator. I have 20 years as an educator, and I've been lucky to have worked at every level of the system. As a teacher at the elementary, the middle, and the high school levels. I've also been a principal a principal supervisor, a chief academic officer, just down the street from you in Springfield, Massachusetts. And when I look at the size of that system and the demographics of that system, very similar to the Hartford Public Schools. And currently, I have the privilege of working with 202 outstanding leaders in the Montgomery County, Maryland Public Schools, where we serve over 151,000 students in an incredibly diverse school system. And so I also have had the opportunity in the teaching part of my career to work internationally as a Fulbright Scholar in South Korea and as a Peace Corps volunteer. I tell you about that work because I've committed my life to serving others. So it's the reason why I did the Peace Corps work, and it's a main reason why I'm an educator and committed to this work as my lifelong career and passion. And so with that, I really welcome your questions, and I look forward to an ongoing conversation with you. Thank you for spending your evening here. You're there now, Paul.
Man, good stuff. Question 1. How do you intend to create a system of accountability as it relates to principals, teachers, staff, parents, students?
That's such a smart question because we're in a time of transition right now. And we have an opportunity that we can seize in local school districts while we're in a time of transition from the former state standardized tests, the AYP, adequate yearly progress that we had under No Child Left Behind as we transition to implementing newer standards, the Common Core state standards. Here you are working with the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. We're working with PARC in my system. And I'll tell you, it's an opportunity because internal accountability is so much stronger than externally imposed accountability. So we have a window right now to design our own accountability systems. This is what we've done to seize that opportunity in the system where I work now. We know that student learning and student outcomes are our bottom line. And so we're always committed to understanding our student outcomes. But we look across multiple measures, right? The state standardized tests are an entry point. We also look at district assessment, what teachers do in classrooms, looking at student work of children, of course looking at graduation rates, suspension rates, any kind of outcomes we can get our hands around, we do, so that we can understand the progress of our students in real time. So that's the first part of how we understand and we create our own accountability system. That's not the entire story of a school and how a school improves and how all of the people who make up that school are making progress. So we use 3 other types of data in our internal accountability system in Montgomery County to understand the unique strengths and needs of each of our schools, and then that rolls down to our students as they set goals, and it also rolls up to help us understand the health of our system. So in addition to looking at student outcome data, we pay attention to perceptual data. And we pay close attention to how our students are engaged in school, because that's a great predictor of student outcomes in terms of student achievement. We pay attention to how our staff is engaged, because we need the adults in the building to be engaged in order to get better outcomes for kids. We listen to our families and the community and assess their experience with our schools as well. So that's another piece of the puzzle in terms of understanding how are we creating the conditions for success for our students to thrive. How are we working with all of the stakeholders in both our internal and external community to get increasingly better outcomes for our kids. We also look at implementation. You got to do what you say you're going to do if you're going to get better results. And so we assess how our schools are implementing our new curriculum, which is aligned to the Common Core. We assess professional development for the adults in the system. We look at how they're implementing their school improvement plans. And finally, the foundation of all of this accountability system is looking at leadership. You can't have a great school without great leadership. And that's the principal, as well as teacher leaders and support staff and parents. And so we have measures to assess that in each of our schools. It becomes kind of a scorecard. You look at outcomes, perceptions, implementation, leadership. That tells us what's going well and what the needs are in terms of each individual school. Again, that rolls into their school improvement plans, and we roll it down to students for students setting goals and tracking their own progress. Even our little kids keep data notebooks and track their own projects. And then you roll it up to look at the system and how schools are achieving along those measures of scorecard as well. So that's a little bit about how we've been thinking about seizing this opportunity to create our own accountability system and really tell the story of each of our individual schools in Montgomery County, to our 202.
In light of research that shows that the more parents are involved in their children's education, the more students achieve, do you have specific plans on how to get parents more engaged, both within the school environment as well as within homes?
So I have to tell you that parents have always been incredible resources and partners to me as both a school leader and as a system leader. I work very closely now with parent leaders. We have a very vibrant PTA system in Montgomery County, and we also have a very vibrant NAACP Parent Council, and I work very closely with the leaders of those organizations. They network and outreach and engage so many of the families across our system. But let me tell you a story about the time that I was a building level leader, and I was charged by my superintendent to lead the turnaround of one of our middle schools that really had a poor reputation and was known as one of the lowest performing schools in our system. And I had a parent call me one day, and this was a parent of an elementary school student. She said, Beth, we're really scared. We're really scared to send our children to this middle school. They've been in a small elementary school. The reputation of your school is not so great. Would you let me bring some parents? I can bring like about 22 parents with me. If you just open up the school and let us come and see the school and tour the school, we'll feel so much better if we can come and step inside and see it before our children come to school. But are you kidding me? Come. Of course. And she became such a great partner with me in leading the school and turning around the perception of the school and engaging other parents. You can bring 22, of course, come. Our doors are open anytime. So I just have seen parents as incredible partners with us in this journey. They're just like, there's not one size fits all for a school and its school improvement journey, and there's not a one size fits all approach for students. For students to be successful, we have to recognize that there are many ways for parents to be involved in the lives of their children's school and education. One of the strategies that we used successfully in Springfield, Massachusetts was something we did in partnership with our teachers union. And we started home visits. Sometimes you go and meet people where they are. And sometimes it's not always them coming to us at the school building. So sometimes you do outreach and families where they are. I just saw a recent research study, it's just published in the New York Times yesterday, that talked about 3 strategies for powerful parent involvement, and that was really parents talking to their children about the importance of education and about going to college, about parents talking to children about their experience in school. Now that's a tough one, right? I know even with my 7-year-old, how was your day? It was fine. Nothing. But that's a strategy to try to engage kids about what they're learning in school. And then third, I'm almost afraid to say this one out loud, but these researchers found that parents that request their children's teacher, that was a strong strategy for parents being involved in their children's achievement. And that just tells us what parents have known all along about the power of a highly effective teacher in a classroom. But my point being, there are many ways that we need to reach out to and involve parents in the lives of their schools. What the researchers said. So, because they're just such powerful resources and advocates and partners for us in children's lives and in their success.
Quick pause because I forgot to mention something. If there's someone that needs translation, we do have that available in Spanish. You guys can see that for those soon. It's not next week, but yes. You guys. Question 3. Do you view the superintendent as having a role to play in promoting neighborhood revitalization as part of an overall plan to improve schools in Hartford? And if so, what role would you envision playing? If not, why not?
I think the superintendent absolutely has to play a role, and here's why. People move to communities for great schools. And so having great schools can be such a driver to revitalize neighborhoods. So ensuring here in Hartford that every school is a consistently high-performing school matters in terms of neighborhoods and in terms of the community development. We see it in Montgomery County all the time. We say, why did you move to Montgomery County? It's not a cheap place to live. It's not the affordable housing, not the traffic, the schools. And I see what you're doing here too in the Lighthouse Schools initiative that you have as part of the Chef via meal settlement. And you're quite right that the schools are a beacon to draw people into the neighborhood and to strengthen the neighborhood. But we don't do it alone in the education sector. We don't do it alone in the school system. We're very lucky here in Hartford to have a mayor who is so supportive of the school system and sits on the school board. And I had a conversation with him earlier today, and is so committed to partnering and doing whatever it takes to revitalize neighborhoods. So in addition to making sure schools are as great and as high performing as they can be to attract families to neighborhoods, we also need to partner with health and human services. We need to partner with the business community. We need to partner with other community leaders, faith-based leaders throughout our community to make sure that we serve our families as well as we're serving our students. So a superintendent needs to be a great partner and welcome and foster those partnerships, in addition to ensuring great, strong performance of each and every school across the system.
Parents, teachers, educators differ widely, sometimes between them, in their views on the merits of the testing that we do. Can you lay out your view of the proper uses and limits of standardized testing and education in our children?
Vehemently, huh? We should not use one measure to understand the performance of our students and the performance of our schools. I know I wouldn't want to be judged on one test. We need to take a holistic view to understand our students' strengths and our needs. And so standardized tests can do a couple of important things for us. Again, under No Child Left Behind, they shone a spotlight on the achievement gap and where we were not serving some students well. That was a good outcome. They also, in my time as a principal, we used the standardized scores as an entry point. Not the end of the conversation, but the beginning of the conversation about great instruction and what great teaching and learning can look like. But you have to use multiple measures. And by the way, if you use standardized tests and you just wait a year for the test scores to come out, you've missed a whole understanding about students' progress and what they need along the way. You need to use other ways of assessing students so you can intervene in real time. And so we need to use multiple measures to understand what's going on with kids. And great teachers are constantly assessing each and every day, almost minute by minute, observing what their students can do, looking at student work, creating performance tasks for students in their classrooms. That's really powerful assessment of what students know and are able to do. So coupled together with standardized tests, we get a fuller picture and a more complete story of our students and what we need to do for them to make sure that they are ready for college and career.
There's a question coming from a high school student. How would you foster more independence and self-innovation among high school students in Hartford?
I love that question. Students get it right, huh? So funny, I get to about 100 schools a year in our huge system, so I spend a lot of time in schools and a lot of time in classrooms with our principals and teachers and students and observing instruction and talking with them about what's going on in their school improvement efforts. And it's funny, you go to an elementary school, you see little kids like really independent. They're reading independently, they're off doing their math problem solving, or they're working in small groups or with a buddy. Incredible independence from young children, as young as kindergarten. Then you go to middle school, a little less independence. Then you get to high school, and you get the least independence from students in terms of their schoolwork. It's just this incredible dynamic, so I certainly understand and appreciate the student's perspective. Let me tell you two specific creative things we're doing to better engage students in high schools in Montgomery County and to help unleash their independence and their innovation. So the first thing we're doing is one of our high schools, and it is one of our schools that is highly impacted by poverty. What people think about Montgomery County is that it's an affluent district, and there are pockets of affluence, but there are real pockets of poverty as well. We have 50,000 students who qualify for free and reduced meals, which is more than all of the students that attend the DC public schools. So this high school is a school that is highly impacted by poverty. And we had an opportunity to redesign this high school as we were going through building reconstruction. And we said, we want this school to be the most engaging high school. And we've redesigned it to be about project-based learning. And so now this is a teacher-led effort in partnership with our students, because project-based learning is really hands-on and engaging and gives kids a lot of choices and different ways to show us what they've learned. And we've also created the school as a real hub for the community. As we design the school, we want it to be a place where the community feels welcome and a part of it, and we leave it open later. We are designing it so the library and other spaces in the school are really just open to the community. But we're really proud and excited about the project-based learning possibilities, because we think it's deeply engaging for students and will allow them to express their independence and innovation. Another redesign effort that we've done with our high schools is for some of our most vulnerable students that, quite honestly, we had not been serving well in Montgomery County. That's our alternative programs. And what we've done, the linchpin of that redesign, has been personalization and personalized learning plans. So when these students come to us, we do a deep intake process to understand their strengths, to understand their goals, their dreams, and what supports they need. And these are students that haven't been successful throughout their school career. So we talk with them and try to understand their aspirations and what it'll take for them to get there. And then as we design their instructional pathway, we're trying to provide a lot of different options for them, whether it's expanding internships in the community, whether it's looking at a competency-based approach, so it's not peak time, but really once you've demonstrated that you've met the standard and you've met those skills, you can move on at your own pace. Whether it's bringing in exciting new electives, so kids have more options and they can individualize their own pathway to success. But we also know we needed to individualize wraparound services and supports for these students. So as part of their personalized learning plan, we also identify the supports that they and sometimes their families will need to help them be successful and achieve their academic dreams and goals as well. So those are two specific projects that we're undertaking right now that really speak to our students' strengths and high school students' desire, rightfully so, to be more independent and creative in their learning.
Halfway through.
How many questions more?
3 questions.
All right.
Hartford Public Schools has done a lot to improve special education and ELL instruction. true court mandate in some cases. How would you allocate resources in a district this size to drastically improve the support and achievement of our most needy students, especially given the lower enrollment of special education and ELL students in local magnet and charter schools?
So I have a couple of questions about that first that I want to find out in research when I come to Hartford. And first of all, it has to do with the choice process. And what does that mean for enrollment of students with special education and at need of English language learner support services, right? Are students disproportionately placed or attending some schools over other schools? Is it a function of the choice process? Something that I have some questions about, and I'd really like to look into that process to see how it is affecting the attendance and the distribution of students with those needs. The second question that I have has to do with how funds and resources are distributed in the system. So here it's a weighted student funding process, so the dollars follow the child, and it's weighted based on needs. So typically students who need special education services or need English language learner services get a higher weight and get some more resources. But we know that special education students don't all have the same needs for the same types of programming and the same resources. So how is that working with the weighted student formula? Same with English language learners. We have students who are new to the country and have an interrupted education and maybe 16 years old, and they have a different need than students who are 5 years old and may have been born in this country. And so they need different levels of service, and so is the weighted student funding process accounting for that. And if not, let me tell you a little bit about how we're thinking about resource allocation in our huge system in Montgomery County now for special education students and our English language learners. So we've started to look at the proficiency level of our English language learners. So what kinds of services do they need to become proficient in English? What kinds of services do they need to hit those academic targets and standards that we expect of all students? And for those that need more to get there, we allocate more staffing and more resources. And the same thing with our special education students. Again, we have a vast system, but we go student by student, because special education students are in different programs that have different staffing ratios and have different material needs in terms of resources. So if it can be done in Montgomery County with 151,000 students, that kind of approach certainly can be done here with 21,000 students across 48 schools, looking again at, do we need another layer of resources to address the different needs that these students have? So that's how I would address that.
Question number 7. This is another question that was submitted by a student. What are your ideas to address our non-magnet neighborhood high school performance? And what would you do, if anything, to change the organizational structure of various high schools?
So the first thing in high school, you have to pay attention to 9th grade. You have to pay attention when children come in. The research is clear that if students are successful in 9th grade, they have a much greater chance of crossing that finish line and graduating. And so if we pay close attention to our students when they come to us in the 9th grade, and we make sure we know them well, and for students that need more support, we're providing it, but making sure each student is known well will make such a difference in terms of performance for high schools. I think also it's making sure that all of our students have access to rigorous opportunities, to high-level coursework, to advanced courses. Are we putting any barriers in the way of any students? Are we holding all of our students to the same high expectations and giving them opportunities to these high-level courses? So that's another thing. Kids rise to our expectations. So we as the adults need to make sure that we're not putting roadblocks in their way to achieving all that they can. In terms of the structure, no matter what kind of structure you have for a high school, whether it's a large comprehensive high school or a high school that's broken down into smaller schools or small learning communities, or a high school with a strong magnet program or a signature program. We need to make it feel small. And it can be done, even in our largest schools. Some of our largest comprehensive high schools in Montgomery County make sure they know every student well. And that needs to be our charge. How do we make sure that every child can identify an adult that knows them well, that they can turn to for support? One of our outstanding principals in Montgomery County would start the first day of school every year, give every kid in her school an index card. And she would ask each student to write down on that card the name of an adult in that building that they could turn to for help and support. And if there were children that could not write down a name, the adults in that school rallied around those children and made sure that there was an adult that was looking out for them. And we hear these stories time and time again, that kids who beat the odds, who seem to overcome the most difficult challenges and barriers, when you ask them what helped them with their success, they point to one adult in their life who they could turn to, and that person advocated for them. We talk about that person as a warm demander, that they cared about them, but they also pushed the student and held them to high expectations. And so no matter what the structure of our high schools, we need to make sure that they feel like small places where kids are known well, and they can point out to us at least one adult who they know is looking out for them.
I ask folks in the audience who'd like to ask questions, now would be a good time to stand behind me. Last question. Question 8.
I'm sure we've all been good talk.
What is your view generally regarding the Chef V. O'Neill settlement? How do you address disparities in achievement and resources between neighborhood and magnet schools?
That created a murmur. This one's smart, you guys are buzzing about that one. I'm really unique here in Connecticut and unique to Hartford in particular. So let me say, I think the goals of Chef V. O'Neill are worthy ones. Racial integration and making sure that we have diverse schools are what we want for kids. Being able to take somebody else's perspective and understand and honor differences and know their strengths for our own experiences as well as those around us, I think are critically important things for the education of our children. So I think the goals are worthy. I think that the mandates add a layer of complexity to an already incredibly complex system that you have here in choice. And as you're wrestling with making sure that you have consistent high performance and transparency in terms of use of resources for the children of Hartford within the city, and then you open up more magnets and magnet seats to those maybe outside of the city, just adds some more complexity, I think, to the work that needs to be done here. But we want people to ultimately say from outside, we want our kids to go to the Hartford Public Schools because we know they offer the best education for kids. But in terms of addressing neighborhood school performance, I want to go back to where I started with the accountability piece. And one of the reasons that we crafted the accountability, and it's a support framework as well, one of the reasons we crafted that in Montgomery County is because we too are facing real issues in terms of variability of performance across our schools. And we needed to do something about that. And so we use that school support improvement framework that looks across multiple measures to understand our school's strengths and needs, and we use that framework to intervene as appropriate. So sometimes schools are struggling along all 4 measures. We provide more resources and support to help them accelerate their school improvement efforts. And that support can be people from my team who go alongside, shoulder to shoulder with the principal and that school leadership team and provide coaching support. It can be matching that school with other expertise in the central office around curriculum or English language learners or special education. Sometimes it's material resources as needed. But you need to have an accountability system that helps you understand the needs of schools so that you can then match appropriate resources. And so we may need to do that and look for ways to invest more and provide stronger support from the central office to our neighborhood schools to help accelerate the progress of students. Because neighborhood schools, we want them to be a viable choice and a viable option and a thriving option for our families, as well as our magnet schools and other schools that exist across the system.
You have 10 minutes for Q&A, and then we'll go to time for closing statement.
My name is Samuel Long, CEO of the School Foundation. I enjoyed your synopsis of what you are, education and dedication, and you said two key things that I feel wholeheartedly about. Accountability is one, and assessing properly is the next step. I have 25 years of demographics on the city of Hartford and the country, and the city level, state level, of their overall aim of education. I wrote the President of the United States and got a great response from him as well, as far as education was concerned, and many other issues. My question to you is, the at-risk target group people and that are going to school today that are turning their backs on education, for whatever reason it may be. What is it that you would do to turn that around and to make the at-risk children ones who could be going for the colleges that they want to go for and not turning their backs on education? And do you think that the truancy, when I was coming up, I grew up in Hartford, raised in Hartford, graduated from the best school in Hartford, which was Hartford Public High School, Every year I graduated, we had the best SAT score in the district. Okay, my question to you is, do you think truancy is one thing that should be re-implemented in the city of Hartford?
Thanks for your question, and gosh, I'm learning more and more as the crowd reacts to the comments. But thank you for the question. As part of this process, the search committee asked us to take a look at what we thought were two critical needs in the system and how we address it. And one of the things that was concerning to me was attendance in secondary schools. And so I thank you for your question. And when you work to address and strengthen attendance in secondary schools, again, you're going to hear some common themes. We don't do it alone, so how we partner with others across the community is going to be important. It takes kind of a full-on campaign to say, this is important, you need to be in school, you need to partner with other agencies throughout the city to make sure we rally around our students. We also need to make sure that kids are engaged. Again, are they doing well? So if the kid's not showing up, where is that one adult that knows them? Bring kids in for a couple of days, or more than a couple of days. I missed you. You have some work to do. It's got more of a standard. Again, so making sure, absolutely sure, that each student is connected with somebody in that building, but then also partnering. I love this partnership. I've been talking about it, everywhere, every forum. It was part of our turnaround effort in Springfield, Massachusetts. And it takes this entire, Paul said, it takes the entire village. And particularly with a knotty issue like truancy, we had this great partner with this organization called City Connects as part of our turnaround effort. And here are the two aspects of City Connects that are powerful. We mapped out all of the assets in the community that we could use to provide wraparound services, support, enrichment, each individual child in a school. And then you have an individual plan for each child. It's a real program out of Boston College and part of our turnaround efforts in Springfield. And if attendance is an issue, it's one of the things that can be addressed in that child's individual plan. Not easy. It takes the collective effort, really, of everybody in the community. But again, coming back to that child-by-child approach. And where is that adult looking out for that kid? and making sure that they know they're cared for, and that they're wanted and valued.
Hello, my name is Carlos Perro, as well as a staff employee here, 24 years, head custodian at home. The question that I had, you mentioned the ninth graders and the success rate of the ninth graders. Sticking with the neighborhood schools, we have a lack of middle schools in the city of Hartford. So we have a lot of ninth graders coming up to the high school level, not prepared whatsoever. So now it just made me think, okay, they're 17, 18 years old in the ninth grade. So that means they're at least 16 years old in the eighth grade in the middle school. And we have the combination elementary and middle school together. Now, those kids are coming up with no skills. What would you, if you became the superintendent in the city of Hartford, what would you do to address specifically the neighborhood middle schools and making sure that those students are prepared when they come to the ninth grade?
So I want to know a couple of things. First of all, what's the relationships between those high schools and those K-8 or those neighborhood middle schools? How do the leaders have the opportunity to talk with one another? How do the teachers have opportunities to meet with one another, to talk about expectations, what skills will students need when they come into the ninth grade, and how can we help you learn those? And then also conversely, we often see that high school teachers can benefit also from some skill sets that middle school and elementary teachers have as well. So how do we facilitate that sharing of knowledge about kids, about teaching strategies, about skills that they will need? And then how do you have a very strong articulation process? It's something we pay careful attention to. Again, it's a careful handoff of children from 8th grade into 9th grade so we can pick up where they left off. But you need to have a strong partnership and strong transition plan and vertical articulation between the K-8 schools or middle schools and then into high schools.
Really quick, more specifically, are you in favor of having middle school only?
You know, the research is mixed on that, and it says that really the structure doesn't matter as much as some of the other things I've talked about in terms of conditions for success in schools. So high expectations, great curricula, great teaching and learning, great leadership, great ways, support system for students. So if you have that in your schools, it doesn't really make a difference if it's a middle school or if it's a case and date configuration.
Good evening. I'm Arthur Nicholson. I'm a staff person at the Adult Education Center in Hartford. So I'd like to ask a question that shifts your focus a bit from our children we're concerned about to adults. We have a large percentage of adults in the city of Hartford who are in need of completing their high school credential, and also adults who are in need of improving their English language skills. So the question I have for you is, what thoughts would you offer on expanding and improving opportunities for education for these adults?
Such an important partnership and service for the community, so let me just state that right off the bat. And we need to make sure we have strong families and we support families so that they can support students as well. I think you put your finger on a couple of important things that I think are worth expanding, so making sure adults can access the educational opportunities they need for career advancement and also English language learners. I saw a really powerful partnership in one of our schools the other day where it was kind of a reverse teaching opportunity where we had some of our Spanish-speaking parents come in teaching courses to our non-Spanish-speaking parents. So having kind of an exchange like that, I think enhances everybody's experience and cultural competence and experience with one another. But I think we also continue to expand job readiness, job opportunities for families as well. And so looking at the skills that they will need, like we say, for our kids to be college and career ready is something that we can translate I think, really powerfully into adult education as well. We talk about 3 competencies for our students that they need to be college and career ready, and I think for adults that are still working on those skills as well, commend them for that work. They need the academic skill set, they need to be creative problem solvers, and they need great social, emotional competencies as well. And so making sure that the adults that graduate from our programs have those skill sets as well are going to be important for their success in college and career, as well as for the students that we see in our K-12 education session.
So it sounds like something they paid attention to here.
Important stuff.
Thank you.
We have just 2, almost 3 minutes to go over closing statements.
Well, I just want to say thank you again. Thank you for listening. It's been so fun for me to share my thinking about the work. I'm passionate about education. I'm passionate about this work. Love doing it every single day. It's such an honor. Love talking about it. And hope that we can continue this conversation in the near future. So just thank you for your incredible commitment to the children and the education in Hartford, and I hope to talk with you again very soon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just take a few minutes to get this information before we do that.